Okay, wonderful. I saw a few additional people go ahead and chime into our meeting today. So let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the My Best Milestone celebration. My name is Precious Miller, and I am the coordinator of My Best, which again stands for Building Economic Stability Today. And have I feel like we have been able to do that, building economic stability for students in the time that they need them by design, not by accident or coincidence. We are supporting students on purpose, as I like to rephrase it. So it's great to see so many of you. The way that we'll spend our afternoon today is being reflective about what we were able to accomplish over the last couple of years. We'll also have an opportunity for us to engage in the chat, hear from our colleges, as well as hear from National Center for Inquiry and Improvement, which I am really looking forward to. Before we get into all of that goodness, I will share that the presentation today is centered around the circle of life for plants. I feel like over the last couple of years, we've done a really great job of planting the seeds and making the case for why supporting student basic needs are instrumental and a part of the responsibility of higher education so that we can support students in retention and persistence and ultimately that long-term economic stability. So not just supporting the student for the here and now, but supporting the lifelong academic and professional development for our students and our students who are parents or supporting their community at large. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go throughout our time together today. I have to give credit and honor where honor is due. My Best and the work that I've been able to support colleges in doing over the last couple of years would not be possible without the support of my amazing colleagues, Jenny Shanker and Erica Oriens. So thank you both for how you have really added to my life and my professional development, asking me to go deeper and to think about things a different way, to see things a different way. I've really appreciated that perspective from both of you. So thank you for joining our convening today and adding value to me as well as all of Michigan community colleges. So now that you have been acquainted with the staff of MCSS, many of you are familiar with us, but you may not be familiar with everyone who is participating in our virtual convening today. So I thought it would be fun for us to do some introductions and do a bit of a roll call here by just sharing your name and what organization or college you are representing today. And as we are doing some reflection over the last couple of years and thinking back on what you, your organization, what your department has been able to navigate over the last 2 years, in the chat, could you also share what I'm calling a thorn and a rose? Your thorn could be something that was challenging that you navigated over the last couple of years. My challenge was definitely juggling working from home with 2 little ones, one of which is home not feeling well. And then my rose would be being able to connect with all of you. And being able to connect virtually, I feel like hasn't limited my ability to develop some really great, genuine relationships with colleges. And so that's my thorn and my rose. In the chat, you can go ahead and share your thorn and your rose and allow other individuals to be introduced to you and get to know you. So as you are populating those in the chat, I'm going to mosey on through here. So again, a more in-depth review of how we're going to spend our time together this afternoon. We are going to talk about how My Best was planted. What was the breeding ground for My Best? We'll also do a video review of where our adventures have taken us over the last couple of years. We'll also hear from some amazing colleges across the state. Then we'll go into a portion with National Center for Inquiry and Improvement with Kelly Cranjeff and Rob Johnstone. If you downloaded the agenda prior to today, you will notice that Priya Shaplot's name was previously inserted there. She is going to be absent to make sure that she is taking care of herself and balancing her well-being. And so we honor that and welcome Kelly and Rob to share. And then we'll end with talking about the new phase of My Best. So what's happening after today and what does this work look like moving forward? Okay, so at this moment, I will turn things over to Erica to talk about how My Best came to be and the breeding ground for this work. Thank you, Erica.
Great, thank you, Precious, and thank you for hosting this event today. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see you again on this beautiful spring, I guess almost summer day. As Precious said, my name is Erica Oriens, and I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Center for Student Success at the Michigan Community College Association. And I'm just reflecting today on how we got to My Best. And I think I can speak for both Jenny Schenker and I when, as we've been doing our student success work over the last several years, you know, many of you know and are involved in our work around developmental education, data access, some of our transfer work, and of course the dog starts barking. Welcome to working from home. Hold on just a second.
Of course, that has never happened to any one of us, right?
Well, we'll see if we can try again. Sorry about that. So as Jenny and I have been doing our student success work over the last 10 years or so, Dev Ed, transfer, doing a lot of the data work that we focused on, you know, one thing that has emerged is the sense that there was something missing through all that work. And as we talk to colleges and their student success work, there just seemed to be a recognition that we needed to find another way to support students, that students were coming to our colleges with a lot of basic needs. I think another thing that happened is Rob Johnstone and the team at the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement produced a publication with the Lumina Foundation called Beyond Financial Aid. And it really got a lot of us thinking about that colleges need to do more to support students financially beyond financial aid. And so I think that was key to recognizing that we weren't alone in seeing that there were basic needs services that we needed to provide to students. The next thing that I think put this into really sharp focus is the development and expansion of our partnership with the United Ways, and exposing ourselves and our colleges to and introducing ourselves to ALICE. The ALICE report that focuses on asset limited, income constrained, employed, those working adults or the working poor in Michigan that so many community colleges serve. And we saw, especially the budgets from ALICE and what it means to have family sustaining wages was really influential as we've thought about how we, what role community colleges can play in supporting basic needs. And then finally, we were so grateful that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services invested for several years in a project to update My Bridges and making that tool available for students and all Michiganders to find one easy place to apply for public benefits, food assistance, housing, childcare, emergency assistance, and that we had an opportunity to share that resource with colleges across the state. So all of that work happened in 2018 and 2019. And then in the summer of 2019, we invited Priya and Nancy Lindeman and Carolyn Bloodworth from the Consumers Energy Foundation to MCCA's summer conference for our presidents and trustees. And we pitched this idea of doing My Best to them, to all of our colleges. And we clearly had overwhelming interest in doing this work. Which was exciting for us to recognize that what we were feeling at the center is what colleges were feeling as well, and especially executive leadership was, and our trustees were willing to support that as well. So we were grateful to receive, to be one of the grantees from the ECMC Foundation to support this work in Michigan. We were even more grateful to post a job for the My Best coordinator, and the top applicant was Precious Miller. Precious, her background in social work and higher education was like the perfect combination to lead this work at Michigan community colleges, but not just her professional experience. I think those of you who've been involved in this work recognize Precious's empathy, her focus on self-care, and not only one unexpected outcome for me out of this work is Precious's support for the work that you do for students, but also Precious's support for all of you. I think the last 2 years have been incredibly challenging for folks who work at our colleges, and the opportunity for us at the center and the association to not only support students, but also use this opportunity to support the people who support students as well was one of the wonderful outcomes of this work. So that's how My Best was really planted. And I think I'll turn it back over to Precious to talk about what happened just immediately after she arrived at the MCCA.
Oh goodness, so much happened after we launched My Best in January of 2020. Many of you are aware of the events that happened in March of 2020 that really rocked our world. But even despite COVID, I have seen colleges really move beyond the food pantry to looking at how do we support students financially, holistically. How can we better collaborate across colleges, and how can we be intentional about cross-college training? And so I have had a blast. I can't speak for every college, but it has truly been a life-changing opportunity for me to be able to be a part of this work. So much has taken place, and it has been challenging to truly verbalize how much work happened over the course of the last 2 years. So I did my best in trying to capture that in a video that I would like to feature and share with all of you today to see the wild ride we have all said yes to. So bear with me as I make sure we have sound to see this together.
Stability, the work of economic stability is really an all hands on deck approach, because when we are talking about supporting the whole student, we need every single aspect of that support represented in the design of that work.
Okay, what time frame are we looking at to do all of this amazing work? Well, it started. It started January of 2020 and is going to continue until June of 2022. But my personal hope is that the My Best project is not something that's going to start and stop. It's something that's going to stay because it has been systematically implemented into your community practices.
At least the work that we were kind of thinking about and talking about, really, we put on pause because of COVID.
We all went through the pandemic, not just our students. So we have all had kind of that humbling to understand that we don't know everything everybody's going through.
Our IT guys visited people's houses to bring them computers and get things set up.
Milestone is nice because you just know a lot of people, and so a lot of times you know who to call, and if you don't know who to call, you just ask so and so, and they know who to call. So I appreciate that piece of just that small town connection, and everyone genuinely wants to help.
We now have a mental health. We partnered with the Mineral County Community Mental Health, and we now have 2 days a week a mental health counselor on campus. We never had that before.
Adding more about the personal component to finance, so like that it's just not, financial aid's responsibility is not just to help with FAFSA type questions, right? So Michael's vision for financial aid is that they provide more comprehensive conversations to students.
So when you hear Alice, we're talking about folks who are have limited assets in terms of income coming in and are constrained, and assets in terms of maybe home ownership, transportation, savings, most certainly, just living on that bubble. And I have a good friend who does a lot of statewide work around income equality, who says, and the most important letter in Alice is employed. It's often surprising to know just how many folks here in Michigan are employed but still struggling to make ends meet.
We also have a really robust spreadsheet of community organizations. That is just started to circulate college-wide.
And what I try to really drive home is, we're here for the students. And the students are front and center, and we need to do what's best for the students.
Speaking of adventure, we've been on the craziest ride I've ever been on since my time in higher ed over the last 2 years with My Best. I did not picture My Best rolling out the way that it did. The pandemic completely shifted every expectation I had for this project, but also in one of the best ways possible. Yes. Yes. Can you say it? Yes. Good job. Okay, so thank you to every person in this webinar, every person who's going to watch it after today, every college, every staff member, janitor, landscape person. I feel like it has taken all of us to work together to truly support students in the way that they deserve to be treated. So well done to all of you. So this video was a labor of love, but also I found myself feeling very grateful and appreciative of all the work that everyone has contributed to this project. And so I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to also share their gratitude in the chat. But this is going to be a bit of an exercise because I'm hoping we can do this in alphabetical order. So I'll start us off with the letter A. My gratitude is for better understanding Alice, those who are asset limited, income constrained, and employed, and realizing that those individuals can often be overlooked. But I feel like with my best are no longer falling through the cracks. So that is my gratitude, starting off with A. Whoever has another gratitude they'd like to share, please make sure your gratitude starts with the letter B and then C and so on. Let's see how far down the alphabet we can go. So as you guys are populating those in the chat, this is a bit of a let's work as a team here. I'm gonna navigate to our next slide. So doing a more pointed focus to celebrate the work of those institutions that were able to participate, you will see those listed here. The institutions that were unable to participate had challenges that were beyond their control and limit to their capacity to participate, but they still were able to join our My Best convenings and participate in a different way. So I do want to make that mention, but these are all of the participating colleges that directly engaged with the My Best initiative. And so I just want to celebrate and thank you for centering your students for academic and all around holistic wellness. Okay, so this is my favorite part where I get to spotlight colleges and give you an opportunity to share the great work that you're doing. So we're going to hear from Bay College and Schoolcraft, and then I will do a sharing for Muskegon Community College as Patty Davignon had an unexpected meeting come up and was unable to join us live, but I will share on her behalf. The things that colleges are going to share and spotlight today may resonate with you. You might find that you have a different way of looking at the success at your specific institution. Bay, Schoolcraft, and Muskegon will also highlight how they're planning to keep this work moving forward. And so it might be helpful for you to, as you're listening to their share out and hear about what Muskegon's been able to do and scale, think about what you want to do for your institution, as well as your organization, and how you want to sustain the work and keep this central focus for your team and your leadership. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bay. We have Jeremy, Travis, and Jelena representing Bay College. I'll turn it over to one of you to share for Bay, and I'll click through the slides for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Precious. Yeah, and I echo all of the appreciations that everyone has, both to Precious and to Rob and NCII, to MCCA as a whole. I mean, it's been one of those things where a lot of these initiatives were on our radar from the beginning, but we needed the push, and the timing of leading into COVID, the push was perfect. So one of the things that we had begun to implement was this holistic advising, co-advising concept prior to My Best and prior to COVID, which put us in a really advantageous spot to have really critically looked at the holistic experience of students. But in hindsight, the things that we learned in COVID really demonstrated that what we thought we understood about the students' entire experience was merely the tip of the iceberg. But through My Best, we had the opportunity to integrate a lot more services and to create warm handoffs and to integrate a lot of the non-academic needs that students demonstrated, but we never recognized or never honored. And to highlight those, I'm going to hand it off to Jelena for slide number 2.
Hello. If we could get to slide number 2, please. So one thing we already had in place before the pandemic was our hub. I think they started it in 2016. I got here in 2019. But our hub is an actual hub. It's centrally located for students. And you can see from the pictures, there's a lot of comfortable seating for individuals and groups to study. We have a hospitality area, which prior to the pandemic, pots of soup would appear for students to come and eat or to heat up their lunches, that kind of thing. Also natural gathering places for study groups, but also our tutoring is located here. Trio services, supplemental instruction is here. And since the pandemic, we were away from our physical hub. So we had to kind of create that virtually for our students, which was a challenge, and we've enjoyed transitioning back. We came back and we've located 6 of our 8 co-advisors on our main campus here. So students can come in and find not only what they need, but who they need. And we are now organically learning about our students' needs. Probably the biggest example lately is when everyone returned in the fall, it became very apparent that our students were challenged with daycare issues. So we were able to, we wound up through learning those lessons of little voices in the hub. We had a baby supply drive, made things available to students, diapers, formula, snacks, to make it possible for them to bring their kids. And the library picked that up and made an area where students could take their children to really relax and play. And we've continued that service. So it's been a lot of things happen organically there. Students get the help they need academically, but they learn that we're people, they're people, and they can find the help they need with us. And I think Travis is going to talk a little bit about other areas where we provide support.
Excellent. So we'll head to, that correct slide there. So if I walk really fast, Jeremy and Jelena are in the hub, I can get to where I'm at in about 45 seconds if I'm walking really fast, which is great because of the proximity to all of these holistic services. So Jeremy mentioned the warm handoff, and that's something we really try to do here by getting students to the place they need to get service. We just don't send them down the hallway, turn left, turn right. They get lost. So trying to get people, even in that short distance, to the right place and the right service is important. So here on this campus support slide that you see in front of you, we have our food pantry, our career closet. The bottom right is our true student services area, which is pre-pandemic what I would call a one-stop shop. It has our enrollment services areas in it. But in that area, we also have our mental health counselors on both campuses. We have access to our emergency funds through financial aid, and a veterans lounge on both campuses as well. So there are these other support and areas on campus that just help students find their place, find their people, but also find the supports they need within a close proximity from both where Jelena and Jeremy are and where I'm at too. So I think Jeremy, it's headed back to Jelena then, right? All right.
Another need we really recognize with our students is that we can tell them about community services that might be valuable to them, but it is sometimes a transportation issue for them to go to the services downtown that may be most helpful to them. And there's also a barrier of crossing a threshold in a strange building to people they haven't met before. So we initiated this past fall bringing different community services to campuses so students could speak directly with them here. Michigan Works is one of them. We have someone who actually staffs office hours here and can provide those services to our students, but also Hope at the Inn for unhoused support, Tri-County Safe Harbor, the Foster Closet, which helps people get set up in their own homes, and different services for veterans. And there's our Norse Baby Supply Drive again, still providing services. We were able to reopen that last week. We sent an email, even though it's summer, and we were able to help some families find formula. So the response to that has been very positive. They don't have to go one more place to get the things that they need.
And so before Precious switches it to the last slide, we kind of talked about how do we wrap this up? How do we demonstrate, what data do we provide to indicate that we think this initiative was successful? And that content got delivered to me last week, Tuesday. So Precious is gonna pull up the last slide. And this last slide is what happened in the study room adjacent to my office last week, Tuesday. So we're in summer school and we had a student who lost her daycare facility for the day. Unforeseen circumstances, went to drop off her kiddo, couldn't do it. And so she came to campus and said, what do? I still want to go to class. The male in the picture is not her husband, nor is the kid's dad. And she spent the day with her kiddo in the study room next to us. And it was that support that let her actually stay engaged in class. And we were able to open the baby pantry, and you can see just the corner of Nemo on the ground there. We gave him a toy to play with, and he ended up crashing out and napping for like an hour and a half. And that's the demonstration. When we talk about student success, it's not about graduation. It's not about completing a class. It's about meeting the students where they are and where they start to fall short and providing the support that lets them continue. And it was just a perfect demonstration. So that's a keeper for me. And I think that's about good enough for us.
Well done, Bay. Thank you for sharing. And it does look like it works. It also looks like he's sleeping very well. So props to you guys for making it a welcoming environment for your students and students who are also parents. Okay, so now we have the pleasure of hearing from Rhonda Donovan from Schoolcraft College. Rhonda, I am looking forward to hearing from you about all of the things that Schoolcraft has been able to do. I will also navigate your slides for you, and we'll turn it over to you to share.
All right, thank you so much, Precious, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here on behalf of Schoolcraft College and the Hinkle Student Resource Center. That's where I work. That is my responsibility here at the college. If you want to move on to the next slide, please, Precious. So my job is to provide resources to our students. This might look familiar to you. This was the Schoolcraft College Trellis survey results. And I'm happy to report that even the president of our college recently shared this out in a town hall meeting. We have virtual town hall meeting because we are trying to make our faculty, staff, and administrators aware of what our students need. And some of the statistics from the Trellis study honestly were quite surprising. But what it did for us is give us motivation to show us where we needed to meet our students and how we could respond to the needs that were reflected in this study. So you can move on to the next slide. So that's where we kind of started brainstorming and working on some things. And so one of the things that I do is when I started this position, I had to identify what are the resources that our students most request and how can I find that? If it's something we cannot service right here on our campus, then what do we do about that? So the needs that we saw the most were housing, transportation, emergency needs, which may be like including a one-time life emergency, a car breaks down, someone's being evicted, something along those lines, scholarship funding, and then our technology loan program, which has been hugely successful, especially during COVID, for our students that did not have proper technology to be able to complete their classes online. If you could move to the next slide, please. So in identifying those categories, one of the things that we did is every year our student activities department here puts on an event called School Days. It's in September every year, and it's kind of the big welcome to college or welcome back to school for the fall. And as you can see, last year's theme was a circus theme. And we actually have it under a big tent. We aren't this year, and I'll get to that in a minute, but this is a photo from one of the past School Days events. So what we decided to do was reach out to our resource partners, our community partners, and ask them if they would be willing to come to campus, represent their different organizations and the services that they had to offer to our students. So resources that our students needed. And I'm happy to report that we had 20 different organizations that responded to our first resource fair. We combined it with our School Days event, which has been well established, and it was a huge success. So it was everything from providing students with clothing and food, but also mental health support and finding jobs and other needs that we have seen them need, even support for those who've been through abusive relationships, those who need legal services but couldn't afford those legal services. So those great community partners came right here and spent 4 hours talking to our students, providing information and supporting them with great resources. And the 4 logos that you see here, MI Bridges, First Step, CNS Healthcare, and Gleaners, were just 4 of the participants that joined us that day. It was hugely successful, and I'm happy to report that as part of our Sustaining the MI Best initiative and to keep it going here, we are doing this again. I just had a meeting last week with the Student Activities Director. We will be offering another resource fair right here on our campus, School Days event. It will be indoors this year, so it won't be under that ginormous tent, but we will be providing, and we are actually hoping to double the number of community resource partners we have here, up to 40 this time, because we have more space. So it's been a big success, and our community partners have just really stepped up to the plate. The next event that we did was we have a welcome back event for our faculty every fall and every winter semester. In the winter, my colleagues, the Dean of Students, and then our licensed counselor who's on staff here, and myself, we all work in the same department. We did a presentation to faculty, and we shared that trellis study with them and had kind of played a little game and had them guess what the number 1, number 2, number 3 requested resources were from our students. And just talked about how students are experiencing economic instability and how they cannot focus on their classes if other things in their life are not lined up, if they don't have food, if they don't have shelter, if they don't have basic services like Maslow's hierarchy of needs speaks to, then they are probably not going to do well in the classroom. So we were able to speak with our faculty, and our faculty is our most forward-facing as far as students are concerned. Yes, our vision meets with students, but our faculty are with students every day in the classroom, and they hear the things that students need. So we did a presentation on providing mental health support, on providing community resources, what I can do to help students, how to put students in touch with me, whether that's through our Student Emergency Needs Fund, where we can fund them with up to $500, or for an emergency need in their life, or our technology loan program, or just connecting with a good community resource that will help them, or sending them to our food pantry right here on campus. So if you could move to the next slide, please. So this is basically what we focused on with student well-being and the faculty responses and the challenges that they have in the classroom as far as students go. So what we wanted to do was partner with our faculty and let them know that we are here to support them and to support our students who do have extenuating circumstances, who do have emergency needs, who are struggling with addiction or mental health or have experienced trauma. I met with a student today who lost her home during COVID. She's experienced a huge amount of trauma, and just connecting her with the right resources here, as well as through our community partners to help her get back on her feet. And that insecurity that we all know students experience, like food and housing and transportation and technology. So it was a great connection, and we do plan to continue that connection as part of MI Best initiative and just part of our Hinkle Student Resource Center supporting our students. And we've seen a lot of changes in students who do get sent to us through faculty. I had a faculty member call me last week about a student that discovered they had an eating disorder through a presentation she did in her class. And she reached out to me and said, "Can you help the student?" And I said, "Absolutely. We have a licensed counselor here. I have put the student in touch with the counselor." And so we're seeing real success by doing these partnerships with community partners as well as our faculty. I think that was the last slide. Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. It's been great to be able to do that, and I'll be listening to what everyone else is sharing today.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. That's amazing work that you guys have been able to do, and really hoping that you guys are able to either meet or exceed your number of partnerships for your school days coming up this fall. Okay, Muskegon Community College is the last college feature that we'll do before we turn it over to the very capable hands of National Center for Inquiry and Improvement. I will be sharing Muskegon's updates on behalf of Dr. Patty Davignon. She's the Dean of Student Services for MCC. And her updates are as follows. So Muskegon Community College was able to create the Jayhawk Hub, a central place for students to receive services. Within the Jayhawk Hub, they have a food pantry, free tax services through local Goodwill. They also have a DHHS member on campus weekly. They have a rescue mission member on campus weekly for their clothing shop coupons that are given to students. They also have an organization called Every Woman's Place. They have a member from that organization on campus to assist those who are victims of sexual or domestic violence. And the last thing that is held at the Jayhawk Hub is transportation assistance. Bus passes and gift cards are given to students. Muskegon's also been able to apply for and was awarded 3 grants. If you need some support in finding and getting approval for grants, Patty is a great resource. I would be happy to share her email with you. Just place that in the chat if that would be of interest. They also extended their early alert care team, which now includes a faculty liaison that represents each of their 14 academic departments. And then lastly, they were able to rehire after 2-year vacancy, the manager for student life position. So well done, Muskegon. So their plans and goals for what they want to do at MCC over the next 6 to 12 months are listed here. The first one is to expand their reach to students and be more specific about how they reach and connect with their students in a more succinct way. They also want to make it a more fun environment, both for those who work there as well as the students, so that when students come on campus, they feel like it is a place that they belong and that they are welcome there. And then the last thing that you'll see is that they want to strengthen their partnerships and communication with their marketing team at MCC so that they can better advertise the resources available to students. Okay, so lastly, we have MCC's goal on how they plan to sustain the work of My Best. They are planning to make the hub coordinator, the one who oversees the Jayhawk Hub, they want to make that position permanent after next year's budget. And then they also want to continue creating new partnerships in the inside and outside of their community to offer the same and new services to students. So again, if you would like to be connected with Dr. Patty Davignon, I'd be happy to make that introduction for you. So we've heard some great things from 3 great colleges. Every college is doing amazing things, as well as the organizations that are supporting these institutions. If you are thinking, you know, I've done some of the things that the colleges talked about today, or I want to explore some of those things today, I thought it might be helpful for you to do some thinking around a mini SOAR assessment. So the acronym for SOAR is Strengths, Opportunities, Ambitions, and results, excuse me. So with this mini SOAR assessment, you could think about the strengths of your department, your specific strengths, and ask yourself, okay, what am I doing well as an individual, or what is my team doing well? For opportunities, you can look at what opportunities can you pursue to make things better. So as an individual, is there a specific training that might be of interest to you to help you expand your portfolio? Or are there other opportunities that your team can look at? Ambitions, you could think about what can your team do or what can you do to improve any existing weaknesses or areas of growth. And for results, think about how what you change or what you implement is going to impact those that you serve. So just something to think about as we go forward in our presentation. I'm going to turn it over to you, Rob and Kelly, to talk about sustainability of student financial stability. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Precious and Erica, and to the entire MCCA team. It's been such a journey to be, I was just thinking back as I was preparing for, I love, by the way, a celebration event at the end. We don't do these types of things enough. We just move on to the next thing and do the work. And this speaks to my overall kind of thanks that I give to Precious and Erica and the MCCA team. We at NCII, we've been around Michigan a long time. We have worked with Erica, and before Erica, Chris Baldwin, who is now an NCII employee, and know many of you. I'm seeing Travis and some other names on here who I've seen through the years. I've been to many of your colleges. We go all the way back to the original guided pathways work in Michigan. And I want to give a lot of credit to MCCA in the state of Michigan for making this the next kind of evolution of the work that you started under Guided Pathways. And I'm going to talk for a couple minutes and get out of the way some of the true experts like Kelly. And by the way, Priya would really like to be here. She had a medical kind of mini emergency. She is totally fine, but she had dental work and actually can't speak. So she is off today, but wanted to share her deep gratitude and thanks for all the work that you've done, as will I and Kelly. But I also want to start with MCCA. You heard from Precious and from Erica that this work started with us at NCII. Right after NCII started in 2013, when I started NCII, we started with Guided Pathways work and pretty much immediately got that work with Lumina that was called Beyond Financial Aid, which, by the way, we did not choose as a name. We would have done something very differently if we were allowed to do that. But Priya and I started that work, and we came at this with this very nascent and undeveloped kind of feeling about our experiences in higher education. Both of us as extremely low income students moving through systems with 100% Pell and no parent financial contribution, and having done it with, probably a lot more advantages than many of our students have, but we were pretty dedicated to this, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level, and remain so. And so seeing what we've seen over this, for us now, maybe almost an 8 or 9 year journey on the formal aspect of this work, seeing the states like Michigan and MCCA, and with the great support from funders like ECMC and others that have done this work, making this a vibrant piece of the efforts to optimize the student experience at your college, so more students can reach their goals of family sustaining wages and economic mobility and bridges out of poverty and racial injustice that we're trying to write. All of you ground yourself where you will in this work. What you are doing in Michigan is groundbreaking. I do not know of another state that has a statewide effort on student financial stability in the way that you've gone about it, that is appreciative, that is focused on the fact that all of your colleges are at different stages of this journey. You all have great foundations that you can build on of work that you've done, and you know that there are evolutions that need to happen as you go forward. You've each focused in certain areas and done some amazing work. It's been thrilling to talk to so many of you in the office hours over the last couple of years and seeing you in these events. But I just want to step back first and say thank you to MCCA, thank you to the funders, and thank you to all of you for doing this work. We all know how challenging the pandemic has been professionally and personally for all of us. And I think it provided an unfortunate but necessary opportunity to rethink and evolve our work about what students really need from us. Some of you have heard me do this before, but I think we learned 3 things really quickly in the pandemic. We learned we had more agency than we knew in being able to change outcomes for students. We learned that we needed to act with even more urgency than we already did in serving our students. We learned how their lives were actually even more necessary and needy of our intervention and our support and our doing things differently. And then we acted with amazing empathy for our students and their lives as our lives were disrupted. And so I want to thank you for the work you've done. We know that it has been a cumulative effect of emotional, intellectual, and almost physical exhaustion as you've done this work. But what you are doing matters, and you're going to see it in your data, and you see it in personal stories, but you're going to see it down the road. And my last thing I'll say about the sustainability of this work, and we've done work on return on investment approaches. And if any of you are still interested in thinking about, hey, this thing we're doing over here, I'm being told it costs too much, contact us. This project's over, but our support of you and the colleges in Michigan is not. We will help you through that kind of analysis to say, all right, if I'm going to do this thing over here that's serving students, I'm making up this, serving 500 students in my college, and it's going to cost me $100,000 a year. Is there a way that by serving those 500 college students, I'm getting more enrollment and retention and downstream success that will pay off in terms of tuition and apportionment? We can help you with that. So that's one angle of sustainability I would continue to offer going forward. This has been a personal thing for me since I came from strategic consulting outside of higher ed. When I came to higher ed, I kept hearing about how all this innovation was too expensive. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah, okay, maybe it costs a little more up front, but this is not a cost, it's an investment. It has to pay off. If we're going to invest in our students, it has to work. We can't just invest in something that isn't getting better. Having said that, I do think that this is a way of thinking that's even more important today than it was 2 years ago, 5 years, and 10 years ago. Because many of your colleges, the enrollment pressures you're under, you need to invest in your students to keep them with you so they can sustain you and you can regain that enrollment. The last thing I'll leave you with, and Kelly can't believe I'm going to get close almost to be done on time, is that I will tell all of you, and it's true in most of your colleges, not all of them, if you could just get 2 more courses from every student who starts at your college, on average, if you could bring the average up by getting more of them to complete, if you could get 2 more courses from every student, most of you would regain all the enrollment you lost. Just by doing that one thing, with the students you have today, get 2 more courses from all of them than you would have. And you were not going to do that by adding courses randomly. We want to do that by their being successful. The types of things you're doing in your student financial stability work, in your My Best work, is an investment in your students' futures, but it's also an investment in your college's futures. And so don't lose that thread as you think about sustainability and continuous forward. Don't lose that this is a cost. It's something that we can't do. It has to be something you actually need to do, to put some upfront investments in to make sure that your students are successful. And yes, we want the moral and ethical thing more than anything else. You also need economic returns to the things you do, but we also have to kind of follow that. So I just, again, thank you. Thanks to our friends at MCCA, and especially Precious and Erica and Jenny and all of those who've done this good work. And thanks to the funders. But Kelly, I know you're going to talk about what other resources we have to help colleges as you take this important work forward. The one thing I'll say as president of NCI is never hesitate to pick up the phone, to send a text, to send an email to us. If something is striking you that you want to get an outside thought on, we will pick up the phone every time. So please, thank you again for your work. And Kelly, please take it away.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be with all of you this afternoon, and I'm going to do my best to channel the incomparable Priya in her absence. She's so sorry to not be with you today and has really been, I know, so connected to and supportive of your journey. And I remember when My Best started, because it was around that time that Priya and Rob asked me to join them on this journey to do more work around student financial stability that NCIA was leading, both in Michigan and across their supporting in Michigan and supporting across the country. So to kind of just ground ourselves or continue to ground ourselves in this conversation, I'm going to offer on really this is Priya's behalf. She is the poem lover among us, and so we're going to have us just take a minute to read this poem and think about just the interconnectedness of our students' lives outside of school to what happens to them in school and so on. So let's just take a minute. So just using this poem as a departure point for our conversation today, we know that from all of your work, that what students are experiencing outside of the classroom, outside of campus, clearly directly impacts their ability to come to our institutions, to stay on course towards their goals and to complete. And so without recognizing and supporting and attending to those life issues, it's really impossible for us to see student completion increase and to see equity gaps close. I want to start with this expanded definition that NCII is putting forward to the field, in part based on the work that we've been doing with you in Michigan. Some of you have seen this definition, this expanded thinking. We shared it at our last convening in May. But just to make sure we're all leaving from the same departure point in this conversation as we talk about the resources that NCII has to support your work moving forward, we're really talking about sustainable support across the entire student journey and really thinking about how to ensure students' financial security from the moment they connect to our colleges all the way until they transition to either continued education or the workplace. And as we've talked about a lot today, and the examples that were shared from Bay and Schoolcraft and and the other in Muskogee, you know, there are many ways that you all are attending to what I call the meat of the sandwich of this definition, the basic needs portion of our definition. And clearly there has been a lot of work to mobilize around attending to students' basic needs through My Best over the past handful of years, and really think holistically about how to support students wherever they are with whatever they're bringing to you in terms of their housing or food insecurity. The childcare needs, the example was so good about the student falling asleep there right in the hub, and really thinking about ways to institutionalize that basic needs support, whether it be through facilities or through professional learning and through staffing that you are going to sustain long term. At the same time, we're thinking about, based on our experience, both with Michigan and other initiatives across the country and our direct work and intensive work with individual colleges, other issues that arise around student financial security and stability in our institutions, including covering college costs. So as we know through the Trellis survey and through other data collection, students often say one of the primary issues that they are concerned about is having enough funding to cover the cost of college, and not just the cost of tuition, but all of the other associated expenses of attendance. And that, those are books, supplies, fees, and really understanding all of the costs associated with attendance, as well as the supports that are available to them to pay for attending. And then the third piece, that last bullet, is really about not just, like Precious started with, the here and the now, but positioning students for long-term economic mobility and security. So supporting them in making informed choices about college and career, those goals that they are going to pursue while they are with us on our campus, as well as those goals that they're really looking towards longer term. And helping them make choices that are going to ensure that they're on a path towards economic mobility. We know that for many of our disproportionately impacted students, that oftentimes they have been on a path towards a low wage or a low opportunity employment based on completion of certificates or degrees in our college. And we really want to think about kind of shifting that generational implication of their program choice and position them and their families for longer term mobility. So with that expanded definition, we have developed a series of resources to support colleges in thinking about how to really continue building on the work that they're already doing, much like you all are doing in Michigan with My Best. And as you come to a close with this particular initiative and kind of think about how to continue and sustain the momentum that you've generated, we're hopeful that these resources may be of service to you as you move forward. And one of the issues that we often see colleges grappling with as they prototype some new solutions, try them out, think about how to begin to scale them or build on them in their institutions, is continuing to make the case both internally to colleagues on campus, as well as externally to partners in the community, for why this is important work. Now, we do know that many people are much more aware as a result of the pandemic about the needs that students are bringing to our institutions. And oftentimes we hear, the case is being made for us as a result of the pandemic. At the same time, as we shift from kind of that higher level awareness to really beginning to think about how to change practices, policies, invest in new strategies on campus, remaking the case, bring more people into the conversation, can be really critical. So this first resource, Student Financial Stability Demystified, can be supportive of those conversations. It offers a series of talking points and examples from colleges across the country, including in Michigan, for addressing top concerns that may emerge when you're engaging colleagues in conversations about why student financial stability is important to support at the institutional level and why it's important to achieving equity goals. So just to give you a snapshot of the types of questions that we address in this resource, they are often from well-meaning colleagues who really are supportive of their students, but are grappling with what is the college's role in this work? And what do we know about students who are struggling with financial insecurity? So, there are around 5 that have surfaced. There are top 5 that we've surfaced as we've worked with colleges around those institutional questions. We're an academic institution. We're not a social services agency, or we refer students off campus for help and cross our fingers and hope they actually get to the resource. So on the institution side, and you can see these may feel very familiar to you. On the student side, there are these perhaps misperceptions or misconceptions about students who may be experiencing financial instability in their lives, and whether or not they're fit for our institutions, they're positioned for success, and really worthy, frankly, of our attention on our campuses. The next resource that I'm going to mention, we actually previewed to you in the last session in May. It looks like alphabet soup up there, but it's actually called "What Does Student Financial Stability Look Like in the Student Experience?" We very plainly named it so people would know exactly what we were talking about when we shared this resource with them. It's really a reference for what students learn, feel, see, do on our campuses when a college makes the choice to prioritize systems and structures that really attend to their financial security across their journey. It's structured around the lost momentum framework, which some of you may be familiar with, that really looks at kind of the entire arc of the student experience based on completion by design. So that is moving students from connection to entry to progress/completion to advancement to the next stage after their time with us on our campuses. And it shares with you a series of sample student experiences that a student might have at those different stages of their journey when we are prioritizing their financial stability. I'm just going to give you a few of those examples now. This is a great way to bring teams together to really talk about these different experiences, and it can offer an entry point for lots of different people on campus to see themselves in how they can support the student experience of stronger support for student financial stability. So there are experiences that we offer up that are really about student services, and there are those that are really happening right in the classroom. There are those that happen through outreach and recruitment and so on and so forth, or through community partnerships or engagement with employers. So it really does hammer home that it really takes the entire campus community coming together and structuring these experiences for students in order for us to support their financial security across their journey. The next resource is actually something that you all probably feel very familiar with, which is I know what you all call the FSOA. This is an updated scale of adoption, in part that is reflective of our expanded definition, bringing in a 5th strategy that really gets at that positioning students for longer term economic stability and mobility. It also simplified the scale somewhat, just to kind of streamline the options that we offer for where you are and, with development of those different strategies. And then we also incorporated an action planning worksheet to just kind of like timestamp where you are in your journey with this work and create some action, kind of very light action planning around where you want to go next based on the assessment. I'm going to give you a quick preview of what that 5th strategy looks like. And it gets at different ways the college can support that focus on students' longer term financial stability. Again, helping students understand the value of attending college and completing the program of study. It clearly communicating that to students up front and then along the way as they're making choices about major and program, as an example. Another example is, working with employers to offer long and short-term paid employment that aligns to students' program of study and addresses their financial needs at the same time. So, and then you can also see the simplified scale here, not occurring, emerging, and fully adopted. So as you think about, kind of moving forward from this work, and we're, very, just to reiterate Rob's, sharing earlier, we are here to support you. These resources available on our website. And really they're kind of here to help you sustain your work moving forward, and really hammering home that centering students' experiences in this work is so essential, and really doing it through an equity lens, considering which students are being impacted and how, and are those the students who are coming to us with the greatest need. Taking an iterative approach, continuing to self-assess where you are and where you want to go next. That self-assessment is obviously very helpful for that iterative kind of revisiting of where you've been and where you're going. The other resources can be really helpful for that as well, particularly what does it look like in the student experience? It can just continue to help select the experiences you want to have for students and figure out where you want to go next. Again, thinking about how to align with or integrate with other institutional redesign efforts. Rob was sharing and mentioning the integration with guided pathways, other institutional redesign work that may be going on. It sounds like many of you are at a place where you have or are beginning to integrate your student financial stability work into strategic plans or educational master plans or other institutional redesign efforts. And aligning with that work is so critical to sustaining the important work that you've already generated. And again, just as we kind of started with the student financial stability demystified, making the case never ends. We know this from so many redesign experiences. It's going to be required to continually bring people in. The mention of faculty was so essential as we think about where our students spend the most of their time on our campuses. It's with faculty in the classroom. Continuing to make the case to those colleagues is so essential, and to other parts of your other colleagues on campus, and again, to those numerous partners in the community. So as we are kind of bringing this to a close, I just want to open this up to you all. Is there a feature of your My Best Work that can contribute to sustaining it beyond the initiative that comes to mind? And since at this point there are 19 of us, I think it's okay. Precious, is it okay for people to just unmute themselves and share? And if you prefer chat, that's okay. But we'd love to hear from you. What do you think has positioned you well for continuing the momentum that you've already generated with this work? Thanks for putting the resources in the chat, Precious. Nobody wants to share? That's okay.
It's very June 7th.
It's very June 7th. I mean, I'm amazed we have 22 people on this webinar at this point. All right. In that spirit of closure, here are our contacts, and please feel free to reach out. And we are just so grateful for the work that you've done and for including us in your journey. And we have learned so much from your experience. It has informed all of what we have just shared with you. So thank you, and we're really looking forward to hearing of your continued success.
We were in person, this is when we would all hear a roar of applause. That is one part that I will absolutely miss and will not tire of. But I celebrate you, Rob and Kelly. Thank you both for sharing. I have truly enjoyed working with both of you and believe that our paths will continue to cross as we move forward. Continuing back to our presentation, there's just a couple things that I'd like to cover. That being what many of you are looking forward to hearing about is how My Best is going to continue. Before we get to that, I want to offer you guys an opportunity to invest or fertilize the soil of where you're going to be in 3 months or in a week, perhaps maybe even in a year. There's been a lot of great things that have been shared by colleges as well as NCII, and I don't want that information to get lost or to stop just because this Zoom meeting is going to quote unquote end in a little bit. And so going to futureme.org is an opportunity for you to write a letter to your future self. Maybe there's some encouragement that you might need to hear when we are going back to our enrollment for the fall. Maybe there's something you need to hear when January comes back and it's dreary and there's snow on the ground and we're all back into that cycle of work and maybe exercise, fix dinner, get the kids in bed, and wash, rinse, and repeat. What are you going to need to hear to keep this work at the forefront of your mind? Kelly had mentioned some things about needing to remake the case to some individuals. For many of us on this call, this work is always at the forefront of our minds because we're always seeing it. And if we're always seeing it, perhaps we could be mistaken that other people also see this as important because they also see it every day, when in all actuality, they just don't. So maybe in that letter you include, am I still making the case for student economic stability, long-term stability? How can I bring this up in our faculty workshops or connecting with financial aid? So I just want to offer that as a tool for you moving forward to make sure that we don't lose the momentum that we've built up together. Okay, so My Best does flourish and we are entering a new phase. The current rendition of My Best was structured around institutional practices to understand student needs, to collaborate across the college, to make sure that students have access to support. Everything we've been doing has had a strong institution focus of structuring. The new phase of My Best is shifting gears towards empowering the individual that works within our college systems. So here you'll notice a conversation that maybe some of you had today or last week, or a conversation that you might have heard some of your colleagues having with a student. At the beginning of this text thread, because sometimes it comes through as a text, the student or the professor is sharing, sorry, the video is in my way, so I can't fully see the screen. Okay, so the professor is reaching out to the student as saying, I noticed that your participation hasn't been the same in class, and so I'm just checking in to see how I can support you. What can I do to be on your team? And then we see that the student is responding and saying, thanks for reaching out, but honestly, I have really been struggling mentally since before the semester even started. And then we see the professor perhaps thinking about how to best respond to the student. Sometimes professors know exactly what to say, how to say it, when to say it, what resources are available on campus or in the community. But for others that we work with, they might not know how to finish this thread. How do I respond to this individual who is having some challenges navigating their course? So that's where our micro training comes in play. MCSS has an incredible opportunity with Consumers Energy Foundation to develop a micro training platform that gives institution members opportunities to learn about community and campus resources so that they can then respond to students on time and with the right response. So we're hoping that at the end of individuals going through the micro training, they would know and be able to respond to students. So that conversation could then continue and look like this. Hey, I'm here to help. That's it. It's okay. I'm here. You have someone on your side. You have someone on your team. This is a resource that might be helpful to you. And then the conversation would then end with a thank you for checking up on me. It makes me feel seen and heard and valued. And for some students, this is the first interaction they might have with the college professional to connect with them and share with them resources to support them in their academic journey. I will share that this is a true real life texting conversation that did happen at a Michigan community college with a Michigan professor and a student. And this is how the conversation was able to go. But we understand that this isn't true for all individuals. And so we want to help with that with our micro training platform. This is a quick snapshot of what that website would look like. So we would have different videos for different topics, like understanding basic needs. What is basic needs? How do we connect with students with mental health concerns? And with those mental health concerns, what's the difference between an acute need and a consistent long-term need that needs additional resources that might be beyond the capacity of the institution? All of those trainings will be listed on and available on one website that all individuals can go to. This is also a free resource and could be great for onboarding new faculty, staff, and administrators to the institution. Of course, we can't do this alone, and we value the input of our colleges because it's for our colleges. And so these are a list of the individuals that have been giving some incredible input in the development of the micro training platform. You'll see individuals from a variety of institutions, but you'll also see individuals from community-based organizations, such as Nancy Lindman from Michigan Association of United Ways. We also have faculty members listed here. We want to make sure that we are fully capturing all the content that would be most important for institution members to hear in this training. And so I wanted to share that with you all. So these are the things that the work group is adding value to the training platform. The first and foremost is the content design. So what topics need to be covered? Here you'll see we have been talking about basic needs, bus stop conversations. You know, when you're at the bus stop and you only have a couple of seconds to do that small talk, that's what we want the micro trainings to be. We don't want it to be long and drawn out. This isn't a 3-day workshop. No, we want to be concise and specific. We also want to have one objective and a list of very specific ways that any person who utilizes or who participates in the micro trainings, what they can directly apply to their work as soon as the webinar, as soon as the micro training is over. And so we're calling those bus stop conversations really quick. We're also introducing mental health first aid. So we're not asking learners to get an MSW, okay? Nope, you all have your degree and that's good. We just want to add a cherry on top to what you're already doing. So you might have a student who just needs a Band-Aid, and we want to give you that toolkit or that mental health first aid to offer that Band-Aid while we wait for the ambulance or the EMT to come on site. We also have community connections and public benefits access. Those will be embedded in the content design, and our work group is helping us be strategic about where we place that. We will again have these in videos narrated, so you might hear some voices that you are familiar with from your institutions be featured in our micro trainings. And then we have a marketing strategy to make sure that we are engaging our board members of MCCA, as well as having presidential champions who will champion this work. But I also share that we are also going to ask all of you to be champions and participate in the micro trainings when they are available. We're also looking at how can we do college competitions. Who doesn't love a healthy competition, right? I love to win. And so I am hoping to share some of that motivation to win and to just be in the know with the micro trainings. And then we'll end with our additional marketing strategies of prizes and rewards, and how can we honor the completion of these micro trainings, and what does that look like? We're still ironing out those details. So here's our timeline. It's ambitious, but I think we can do it. The work group has already launched and we've had several meetings already. We are in the process of developing our content and believe that we will be ready for a soft launch of the website this time next year. And then we'll do a statewide launch of all of the training resources in August of next year, followed by the closing of the project. And our goal is to have 20% of all Michigan Community College faculty and staff complete all of these trainings by December of 2023. So how can you stay connected? What does it look like for our community moving forward? Great question. We are going to continue to have the MCSS Student Success Summit this fall. Our theme this year is shut down, restart, because we are restarting in a lot of different ways. And so we're going to continue our Student Success Summit as a way for you guys to engage and share across the state. And that's going to be held September 20th to September 23rd. Stay tuned for additional announcements about that. We'll also continue to send out basic needs news blasts, is what I'm calling them. So every so often we will get announcements about new trends or things that higher education is doing, or new trends that are up and coming. And so we'll share those in news blasts. And then you can also stay current in all of the things that we're doing at MCCA on our Twitter and LinkedIn page. So please, if you're not following us on either of those platforms, you can do that right now. And then as we end, I couldn't find a good poem to truly capture today's convening. So I wrote one of my own, and I'm calling it Harvest. And I'll read it aloud. It says, "The wind blows where it wishes. Seeds take root where they are welcomed. The mysteries of what lies ahead are revealed to those who are open." No one could have anticipated the pandemic, but no one can anticipate what's going to happen in August or in December or 5 years from now, because the wind blows where it wishes, and sometimes life happens. When life happens, I believe we can all be really fruitful when we ground ourselves in our current strengths and link up with people who are on our side and on our team. Lots of roots intertwine and connect. And I feel like we have those opportunities to do that when we take root in where we are. The mysteries that lie ahead can sometimes be overwhelming. And in those moments, if we are open to learning something new, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, we can really reap a harvest we have never seen before. And I think that's what we've done over the course of My Best, impacting 200,000 lives, not just students, but also the communities that they impact and the families that they impact. We can reap a harvest that we can't have room for. And so I celebrate all of you. I am thankful for all of you. And it has truly been the highlight of my life thus far to be able to be a part of this work. I'm so appreciative. Stay connected, as Rob and Kelly mentioned. I am still here, as well as Erica and Jenny, to answer any questions or to just link arms to bounce ideas off of each other. I may not always know what to say, but I have two great ears and I am a great thought partner. And so I welcome that to you all. And I have some resources at the end if you would find this to be helpful to you. We are ending a little early, but I have never met a person who said, I don't want extra time back. And so I offered those few minutes back to you all, and thank you again for sharing your time with me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Precious.
Thanks.
Good to see you, everyone.
Thanks, Precious. Take care, everybody.
You too.